Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of the show. We've got a very special guest here on the Zoom line, Mr. Tom Englund from Evergrey and Redemption and other various projects. Tom, welcome. Good afternoon to you. Good morning to most folks here on the East Coast of New York City.
Yeah, good afternoon and good morning. Thanks for having me.
Oh, pleasure having you. So lots going on in the Evergrey camp, right? So we've got a brand new album set to be released in about a month called Escape of the Phoenix, which is coming out on AFM Records. And this is a 12th studio album that you guys debuted back in the late 90s. So you guys are really pumping out the albums over that span, which is really great to see. Can you tell us a little bit about the title of the album? And is that significant at all? Escape of the Phoenix. Great cover art too, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't paint the cover art, unfortunately, so no credit to me for that. But at least I gave him the idea and the idea came from me thinking about this poor bird being condemned to everlasting resurrection and then being burnt at the stake every day. So I figured that sounds like my life. So that's how the basic song idea started, basically. So then I just told him about this, and I said, wouldn't it be nice if this bird could flee the chains that held him down, basically, and nothing more complicated than that. But I figured, yeah, I mean, we all have times in our lives where we feel like everything is pretty much the same, day in, day out, especially now, I guess. So,
well, yeah, and that's kind of why I brought it up, because I think, there have been a few bands that I've talked to in recent months where their new releases or music have been inspired by, what's going on in the world with the pandemic, with COVID-19, and that feeling of isolation and rising up from that. So it's like when I saw the cover art and when I, heard the name of the album, I was like, well, that's, could be applicable to what's going on as well. So that's kind of why I asked.
Yeah. I mean, at least I hope that's the picture we can see in a few months where we get to leave this behind us. So, yeah.
We can only hope, right? We can only hope.
Right.
So you guys have had a pretty constant lineup now since 2014. So in your opinion, how important do you think it is, and especially in the eyes of the fans who like to latch on to a consistent lineup, how important do you think it is to present that stable lineup over this extended period of time? I mean, do you think that makes a difference at all? I mean, I know personally, I have always seen people really tend to stay loyal to bands that have a consistent lineup where they can kind of relate from album to album, tour to tour, to that same kind of cast of characters, so to speak. So how I mean, I know you guys have had multiple lineup changes over the years, but
I think it's inevitable. I'm in awe of bands that have been there for a quarter of a century like we have and stayed with the same lineup for that full amount of time. I mean, it's important. I think it's important for I think all kind of stability is important. I think it creates also a work environment where you get some sort of organization culture going. But that can also be the same thing that sort of keeps you down or gives you other challenges in that way too. So yeah, it is important, but you shouldn't either overvalue it in a way, because in the end of the day, if not I mean, and it's easy for me to say being the singer, but if I would live, I guess it would have some sort of impact, I hope.
Yeah. And again, it's you really can't you can't control how the fans feel about that, right?
Right.
And I guess like kind of part two, and this question will come up later on in our discussion, but because fans get very attached to certain lineups, certain people in bands, and they kind of
great.
Yeah.
I think that's it. But if you look at any sports team, that's the same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sometimes you need to exchange the player for not for better player, but for more motivated players, maybe. And that's what happened with Jonas and Henrik back in the day. When they left, they weren't motivated to do Evergrey, and Evergrey shouldn't feel like a chore. It should be something that you really would love to do. And if it's not, it's better you do something else that sort of sparks your creativity and inspiration again. And that's what happened. And that's the best decision we ever made.
Yeah. And I think from a fan's perspective, you know, we need to understand that too, that sometimes that change within the band is for the better of the band in the long run, right? And it's like, instead of saying, well, I don't know if I can continue to follow this band without those members, you have to stop and think, well, maybe the band had to make that choice and the band is better off and will move forward a little bit easier with this choice. And, you know, as a music fan, you have to say, okay, well, you know what? The band has accepted it. The band is moving on, and let's follow along and see how it goes. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, it's very in at least in our situation, it wasn't anything that was strange, or it was sad to a certain extent, but we also went out, all of us in the band, and made this public announcement about it. So, and then it was very easy for us to say to each other and promise each other, let's not talk about this in the press, other than what we have decided now. You know,
Right.
There wasn't any secrets or anything. So if anyone, like a journalist, that happened a bunch of times, a journalist tried to put something in there to make some friction or whatever. I actually called Henrik up once and asked him, did you say this? Because I'm having this guy here saying that you said this. And he's like, let me talk to that fucker, you know. So that was one of Sweden's biggest metal magazines. So, yeah.
Wow. And that stuff happens all the time, probably, right?
It happens. And at the same time, I mean, it's not like life in a band is much more different than being in a family. Or, I mean, having a wife or a husband for 25 years is quite tiring, that too. So, you know, being a band, still being a band, that's one of the things I'm very proud of today, releasing and writing contemporary music that still counts, that people still listen to. You know, it's just a blessing.
Yeah, absolutely. So back to the new album. So Escape of the Phoenix, I've given it a couple listens, and some really epic sounding songs, you know, in typical Evergrey fashion, which you guys have a very distinct, unique sound. And I think you get that with this album. A lot of power, a lot of emotion. Some of the songs that stood out for me, Stories is a great song. The Beholder is excellent. Forever Outsider. How happy are you and the rest of the band with the way this album came out, with the collection of songs you put together, which, you know, to me, you know, right off the bat, like on initial couple spins, appear to have so much depth and that kind of trademark, you know, compelling musical and vocal performances that we always expect from the band.
Thank you very much. I mean, I've learned something very interesting during the last couple of albums we've released, that when I don't know what I think about an album, it's usually a good sign. And I was supposed to get prepared for this interview month I'm doing now, or have been doing for 3 weeks, and I'm on the 4th week now, preparing by listening to the album and getting sort of to know what the hell I'm talking about. but I haven't been able to, because I've done so much other stuff. So in that sense, I don't have a clear view of the album, but I have one clear feeling that I'm feeling when I'm listening to it. I listened to it in the car the other day, and it feels hungry. That's my first word. It feels hungry, and it feels like there's also some new elements coming in. I wouldn't say it's uplifting. If Evergrey can be uplifting, this is maybe the album, but it has some energy that comes from a I mean, I don't know, a perspective of wanting to sound the best. That's what we always do, wanting to write the best song each and every time, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to so many artists and bands who are like, oh, our new album is the best thing we've ever done. And I think that's always like the common thing to say. But I think it's hard to actually judge an album until you've had like a history with it, right?
Right. How can you judge that? I mean, it's impossible. It's like saying, this is I don't know. I don't even, I don't know what to compare to, but it's like, yeah, this is the best album. No, these are the best 11 songs we could have written right now.
At this time, right? Yeah, correct.
And that I am 100% sure of.
Good. Well, that's what's important, right? So, yeah. So, what was it like to get James LaBrie from Dream Theater on this album to sing on the Beholder?
Oh, such a drag. He's the most lovely person, you know. Anyone who has spoken to him knows he has the best sense of humor too. So we had some great moments during the back and forth with the emails and the songwriting and whatnot. So, but yeah, we were sitting in the Evergrey studio listening to this song, and this keyboard part came that Jonas, the drummer, wrote, and I said, we should have a guest vocalist. And pretty much everybody in the same room turned silent and said, it's James. We should have James, because I don't know what it is. It's maybe something in the melody. It's maybe something in the structure or the chord progression or whatever that reminded us of James. We toured with him in Europe, and we played with Dream Theater a bunch of times too. So that was very, very clear for us who it was supposed to be. And then I just sent James an email telling him about the song and what I had in my mind lyrically, and that we saw him as the guy. And he just listened to it and said, yes, hell yes, I'm in.
Yeah, he fits right in. I mean, it's like you listen to it and like, wow, those two guys, you and he, sound perfect together in that song, and you couldn't have picked a better guy to fit into the kind of the theme of the whole piece.
I mean, it's so fantastic to be able to sort of close the circle on a bunch of things, because in part, Dream Theater is responsible for how Evergrey sounds today, because Dream Theater was one of the reasons why I started the band. Wanting to sound like them, quickly realizing that we didn't have a clue of what we were doing in terms of instrumentation and not being able to play like them or whatnot. So in that sense, we had to find our own way, and we did. And during that whole time, James has sort of been one of the key voices to my sort of soundtrack to my career in a way, which is great. I mean, and the song is about having a role model or a higher self or big brother or mother or somebody that you look up to, that can guide you through certain aspects of your life where you are struggling. And so for me, it was amazing to know that I could write. When he said yes, I knew that I could write the exact melodies as I wanted him to sound. So I wrote the melodies and I sang them for him, and then he wrote his his rhythms and his style on my melodies. So, and then I adapted to his rhythm. So yeah, it's I think it turned out great, to be honest. I'm really proud of it.
I agree. Is there a specific Dream Theater album that kind of really inspired you back in the day?
It was during the MTV and Pull Me Under, of course. That era, from that album and onwards, I would say has, and it's always a I always, they seem, I mean, they're so lovely guys, all of them too. So it's like, it's hard to not sort of keep track of what they're doing. They're so busy in terms of, playing on YouTube, and everybody's so talented as well. So it's like, for me, it's just been one of those bands that you have with you all over your life, it seems. So
yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring up the fact that you guys have toured with them before, and I think that's one of the things here in the U.S. that we don't see enough of, is these kind of like package tours that puts bands like yourself with Dream Theater or with Vandenplas. I mean, all these great bands that tour together in Europe, and when we see Dream Theater here, generally it's just an evening with Dream Theater. They play like a 2 or 3 hour set. There's no opening band, which is great for the people who just want to see Dream Theater. But I'm the kind of guy who I would love to see, Dream Theater with Evergrey or with, Symphony X or Vandenplas or you can name a ton of other bands, right?
Yeah.
But we don't get to see that here, unfortunately.
Yeah, but they don't do that here in Europe either. I mean, it's since a bunch of years, I think they only do this evening with Dream Theater stuff here as well. And when we played with Dream Theater, it was not on a tour per se, but usually in these bigger festivals. Yeah. And then we toured with James's solo album that we toured with here in Europe. So yeah, yes, please. I would love to tour with Dream Theater. Who wouldn't?
Exactly. So speaking of touring, so we've got, COVID-19 still a pretty big issue here. So what are your plans and the rest of the band, kind of short to long term, to promote Escape of the Phoenix? I mean, obviously you can't really play live now. Are there anything that you can do in the short term, or are you kind of going to wait this whole thing out?
Dude, I don't know. I mean, well, what can we will do what we can do. We have a tour planned for Europe. It's no makes no sense to plan a tour in the USA because I think honestly I think it's going to be a good while before a European band can come back to the US. Not only because of the COVID, but then also having your government decide on how bands can enter your country again, and
Yeah.
that is a big hassle to begin with, even before COVID. So and it's such a long, process. It takes usually a half a year to get the working visas and all that. So nowadays, I don't know. For the US playing live, I don't see that happening soon, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I might be wrong. There might be some extremely smart person out there that have already come up with a visa passport or something. I don't know. I don't have a too bright look on it, to be honest, and not for Europe either.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, I can
I
only
think we
speak
can
of.
play pub shows in the end of this year, if we're lucky, in Sweden, not throughout Europe, but maybe like 300 to 500 person clubs in Sweden domestically. If anything outside of that happens, I'm just happy.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing happening like in my area of the U.S., like in the East Coast and in New York. I mean, there's no live shows happening here at all. I know there's parts of like down south where they're doing, smaller events with limited seating and whatnot. But I don't know. There's a lot of people that are talking that it might not happen until 2022. I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, it's there's gonna for sure be a before and after this. On the other hand, mankind is so adaptable and flexible and great on taking on life as it comes. So I'm sure we're gonna see a lot of positive aspects after this as well. So
Yeah.
thinking in new ways, creating new opportunities, and all of that good stuff. Hopefully.
Absolutely. So you got another kind of new thing going on here. Can you talk a little bit about your other recently released project, Silent Skies?
Yeah, for sure. Silent Skies is a project that I wanted to do for the longest of times, like 10 years at least. I had this unclear vision in my head where I wanted to create sort of score music with vocals. That was pretty much it. And then one day, like 5 years ago, I saw a guy on YouTube who had made a piano cover on a song of ours called "Missing You." And I I saw it and I thought it was great, and then a bunch of years happened, and then I saw him again when he made another cover of a song called "Distance," I think. So then I mailed him and said, "Dude, we should play music together." And he proved that he was a big Evergrey fan. Very young. His name is called Vikram Shankar. He's an extremely talented piano player. That's even not it. He's an extremely talented musician, playing everything. One of those guys you hate, But yeah, so that's how that started, and then we just started exchanging song ideas and trying to figure out where we would land with it. And when we had come to the point where we had written 10 songs or something, I think he flew over here and we recorded them along with 7 other songs. So we actually recorded 17 songs. And this is 3 years back. So the album's been finished for 3 years. So It's been a long wait for us to sort of find the right time, but also find the right, I wouldn't say image because we don't have an image, but find the right, output in a way. So, and now we felt it was a good time. Yeah, so I think we have material for 2 more albums lying around that we can't wait to get started on.
Cool. Yeah, I haven't heard the music yet, but one of my writers on our website actually reviewed the album last week and had a lot of really good things to say about it.
Yeah. The response has been, the response has been insane because, we released this knowing that this will probably not appeal to most of the metal fans. That's where we came from anyway. It proved that we ended up on a lot of top 3 lists on the metal magazines, which is like, that just proves that we are ignorant, that we don't expect people to like, or maybe a bit scared to, But yeah, it's dark, it's moody, it's a journey listening to that album. I'm extremely proud of it.
But, I think your voice can lend itself to material like that. I think a lot of people love the kind of emotional aspect of your vocal style,
Yeah.
which, and on a lot of the Evergrey albums, you have some softer, more melodic, moodier pieces in addition to the more upbeat metal stuff. And I've talked to a lot of people over the last decade or so who tend to gravitate towards that material because your voice sounds so good singing that. So I think this band probably is a good extension for that. And I can totally see a lot of Evergrey fans, getting into it.
Yeah. And now I agree. Beforehand, I was a bit more hesitant to, I didn't even want to let people know that it was us. Inevitably, it would be quite obvious when they heard my singing, but we were not approaching the metal audience first. We were approaching everything outside of that because we pretty much, we thought people would hate us. But that's so nice because I get to do things in Silent Skies that doesn't fit in Evergreen, that is too calm or too mellow or too slow. We have first single is 8.5 minutes and it's piano, some small instrumentations and vocals. And
Very cool. So in addition to all this, you're also the vocalist in Redemption as well. And
yes.
got this just came out not too long ago, right? So the live album, right, from Prog Power. So can you talk a little bit about how all this happened? I was one of many people who were like, holy shit, Tom is now singing for Evergrey. Singing for Redemption. Like, how did this all happen? So how did you get approached? And, when did Ray decide that he was going to kind of step down? And because I think this was a surprise for all of us, and it's actually worked out really well. So what's your kind of take on the whole situation?
Well, it was like this. Back in 2001, I met this guy called Nick Van Dyke,
Mm-hmm.
And we hit it off on a friend basis, we really hit it off. One of those persons you meet where you feel that they have so much in common and you really like each other, So we hung out for a few of the Prog Powers, I guess, and that friendship sort of deepened. And at one time I said to him, if you ever need a singer because of whatever reason, I will help you out. And this was, 2005 or something. So come through 2019, it's that time. Nick called me and said, it's that time you promised me. So yeah, but we talked about it, and that it's a very good example of things happening. I'm also friends of Ray, I would say, So Ray had his obligations towards Fate's Warning, and I don't know the actual reasons behind, but maybe it clashed schedule-wise or whatever. But he couldn't do it, and then I said, yeah, I can do it, and then we started working on it, and which is it's a great way for me to also be just a vocalist because I'm not involved in the music creativity as of yet, anyway. So just coming in and singing what Nick wants me to sing is a great way for me to sort of step back from my creative side and just be an instrument. It teaches me a lot, So yeah, it's just for me, it's just a great way to be a musician with a great friend of mine, and also get to play great music and drink great wine and hang with great people. That's what life's about, pretty much, And also then Simone from DGM, who is a fantastic guitar player, he's also in the band. And me and him have had a band called Episode before, we didn't have the band, but we played in that band together. And then I brought Vikram into Redemption as well. Or Nick brought him in, but I introduced him. Yeah, we should have this guy in the band. So now it's a huge family of branches stretching everywhere.
It's like a progressive metal supergroup almost, right?
It's almost dangerous in a way.
Yeah, it's interesting watching the performance from Prog Power on the DVD, and seeing you up there just singing with no guitar. It's like that was kind of a little adjustment. But it sounds like you don't really miss it. This is almost like a nice, refreshing change of pace for you.
Well, it's also the first show I ever did, and we recorded a Blu-ray. So, yeah, we could have. I could have wished for another scenario, but it turned out great. I think it's a people was accepting, and it was so nice that we had Ray there too, and that just proves that not everything is infected and full of anger or resentment. It's life happens, and then you move on.
Yeah, I mean, Ray is a legend, and it's some pretty big shoes to fill. But I think that you guys proved it with the studio album that it could be done and it could sound really good. And I think most of the fans are on board now, and it's like, I'm curious to see what you guys do next.
Thank you, but I mean, for me going into this, I was never a Redemption fan or a Fates Warning fan. I'm not saying anything bad about them, but I didn't come from that background at all. I missed them, So for me, stepping into Ray's shoes, yeah, he's one of the greatest guys in the world to hang with, one of the funniest dudes ever. That was my perception of Ray, So I didn't know how he was singing, So for me, it was like I didn't feel that pressure, which was probably good because I felt the pressure when learning the songs, But for me, it's just a great way to extend my own musicianship into somebody else's music world.
Yeah, there you go. So with 12 studio albums under your belt now, you guys have kept like this really consistent quality of your albums over the years, and you've steadily built up a nice audience. So I remember seeing you guys at this was a long time ago. It was in New York City at BB King's in New York City in Times Square. You guys were on the same bill with Iced Earth and Children of Bodom. So I'm guessing this was maybe 2006. I don't know. I forget the exact year it was.
I remember the place and all. I didn't think it was that tour, but yeah, you're right.
And I had already been a fan of you guys from the beginning. I mean, I started following you from the very first album, and I was thinking, seeing that show, because it was my first time seeing the band, and I was thinking, this is the kind of tour, the kind of exposure that I think really could take Evergrey to that next level here in the States. But all these years later, you guys, at least here, still aren't like a household name. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because maybe not touring here enough? Do you think it's, record labels not promoting your music here enough? Because everybody who gets exposed to the music of Evergrey is like, wow, I really like that. Your music has an accessible feel that I think would really latch on to more of a mainstream metal audience. So why hasn't it happened yet? What's your take on that?
Well, I think it's a combination of all those things you mentioned, first of all. But I also think that it's mostly because people have a preconceived idea of how we sound and never listen to it. Some think of when they see the logo, oh, it's black metal or death metal.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
and some think, yeah, progressive. I don't like progressive music, and I don't necessarily see us as a like a progressive band per se. We have some progressive elements going in and out of that, but we're a metal band with a bunch of influences.
Yeah,
everything from AOR to classic Ingrid Malmsteen guitars. It's everything. So I think that is key, and it's also. We did all these huge things in the US too. We co-hosted Headbangers Ball. We did all of these things, and at that time things started to happen. But what we didn't do at that time was that we didn't come back like 2 months later. We had 2 more tours in Europe. But with that said, we're not that huge in Europe either. We play clubs from 300 to 1,000 people pretty much. So it's not like it's that different in the US. I'm just happy that we're still here. And the great thing about being a smaller band like us is that we are still growing. Our most commercial, successful album is The Atlantic. So, there you go. Yeah. People talk to me about In Search of Truth, and it's the most successful album. It's like, dude, Forever Outside, the first single from this album, have more plays than the master plan. So, it's like, how do you measure success? For me,
yeah. I think sometimes people measure success in what they like and what they feel. It doesn't mean that if you look at the sales, right, that they're totally unrelated.
Yeah, of course. And that's the way it should be. You should, but don't tell me that it's the most successful album, because I know which one it is. You know
exactly.
But that's great though. I mean, now we have fans from 3 decades, which is insane. You know.
Right.
It's not that many bands that can say that, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of bands last that long, and you know, and let's be honest, it's often been hard to describe what the music of Evergrey is all about, because, you know, these days everybody likes to put the music in a box, right? It's like, well, who do they sound like? What genre does it go into? And you're absolutely right. There's bits of progressive metal. There's definitely some power metal. You could say atmospheric metal. I mean, you know, there's lots of drama in your music. You do a little of the neoclassical thing at times. It's like this weird mix of styles that doesn't defies classification, right? So, and those are the bands that tend to puzzle people, because they're like, they can't put it in that box, right? And you know, and people these days are sometimes afraid to try something new if they don't know exactly what they're in store for.
So but that's just it. That's a great analysis, because that's just it. People need to know that they're buying a burger from McDonald's, you know. I don't want to know. I need to know that it's meat in this, you know. I don't want to hear about this veggie stuff. I don't know what's in it, you know. That's pretty much the same thing. So we're like a vegan burger. So but you know what it is, you know.
Exactly. I just say, just give it a try. Just give it a try. You know, it's like,
have a bite.
It's like the old Life cereal. You may not read. I'm probably a little bit older than you, but the old Life cereal commercial back that used to play here in the U.S. is the little kid Mikey. It's like, try it, Mike. Try it. You'll like it, type of thing, right? So exactly. You got to try it first, right?
Exactly.
So I can't let you go without a little talk of gear, because a lot of people like to who watch this channel like to hear about, you know, what stuff you're playing these days. So what type of guitars and amps were you using on the new album, and anything new that you've gotten that you're toying around with lately?
I mean, both me and Henrik, the other guitar player, are extremely fortunate to have a Bogner amps that we play our guitars to. He even built them specifically for us. So amazingly blessed by that. And then Henrik has his own Charvel signature model. It's called SoCal, that he actually just released. Oh, wow. I think it's sold out, to be honest, but if you can get your hands on one of those, run and get it, because it's an amazing guitar that gets you playing. And I am sponsored by Caparison Guitars. That is an equally great guitar. So we have pretty much played the same stuff that we have done for a long while through the last, at least the last 4 albums, I think. So it's Bogner, Caparison guitars for me, and then some Dunlop pedals.
Okay. Yeah, Dunlop makes good stuff. Yeah. So how big is your guitar collection, just out of curiosity?
I think I don't know. but Henrik's is worth. I have maybe 15 guitars. Henrik has 55 guitars.
Wow. Yeah.
I think yeah. I mean, he has guitars for several $100,000. So wow. some really expensive stuff. I'm not that guitar nerdy in that sense. I view guitars as an instrument, pretty much as my own voice. It's a way for me to get from A to B.
Right. Yeah.
But it helps when it's great to play, of course.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's guitar collecting is I mean, you know, as you can see, I have I've got a few myself. I'm not in a band or anything, but it's just, I've just been playing, you know, a good chunk of my life, and it's just fun. But I mean, I talk to people all the time who very quietly have like guitar collections, like 75, 100, 150 guitars. It's like, well, and then they don't play in bands, they don't record anything. And like, wow, what do you do with all that stuff? Where do you house all that? It's like, it's crazy.
Great.
Yeah, oh, it totally looks great. You know, what you do with it is like, you know, I mean, let's face it, we're all not like Joe Bonamassa, who have like houses that we bought specifically to keep all of our vintage gear in, right? So it's
that's the wah pedal I'm playing. Joe Bonamassa, come down with it.
Well, Tom, I want to thank you so much for joining us here today. It's a pleasure talking to you. And Escape of the Phoenix is the brand new album from Evergrey, coming out, was it February 26, 27, something like that?
26, correct.
26 on AFM Records. I'm assuming, based on all the great stuff we see from AFM Records, it's going to come in a nice, lovely digipack type of thing with great cover artwork. And so check that out. how many new songs are on the album? 11, 12, I forget exactly.
11 on the regular edition, 12 on like some limited edition, super packed. Yeah.
Gotcha. Very cool. So everybody be on the lookout for that. Get your pre-orders in, check it out. I've heard it a couple times. It's quite good. So I think everybody's going to enjoy that. So
Thank you.
visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. For Tom Englund, I am Pete Pardo. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.